Ooh. Hi everyone, Othony No Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Silk Sonic album, An Evening with Silk Sonic. This is the highly anticipated debut album of Silk Sonic, the newly formed music duo of Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars, who have had very different commercial trajectories over the past decade, living in seemingly different worlds as a result of that, and the music industry can often feel that way, but oftentimes it is just a perception, because if you look objectively at the respective styles of Bruno and Anderson, you can see they both wear their love of funk and soul on their sleeves, especially on their latest records, which is exactly what they're finding commonality on with Silk Sonic, which isn't just a soul record, but a whole entire throwback to the 1970s, with glamorous big-budget production and soaring vocal harmonies. It's Isaac Hayes, it's Stevie Wonder, it's Curtis Mayfield, it's the Isleys. So by no means is Silk Sonic an inventive music project, nor does it pitch itself as one. If you told me on this LP that Bruno and Anderson are just kind of basking in the glow of their influences here, I'd have to agree. I would also argue that they're doing it so well, to the point where I think Silk Sonic more or less stands on its own and makes you excited to listen to this really familiar sound all over again. Plus, Bruno and Anderson do legit have a lot of chemistry together, given their respective vocal timbres, ranges, and personalities. Regardless of what you think of Silk Sonic's originality or lack thereof, it's really clear that Anderson and Bruno play off of each other really nicely and know exactly what their respective strengths are and how to play to them. Whether that's on the impeccably smooth and glistening Leave the Door Open, which is about as euphoric as a soul cut gets, there's also the unapologetically funky Fly As Me, which hits right away with this great groove and meters-esque bass line, lots of extravagant horns as well, and Anderson .Paak dropping these funny and flirty bars from one side of the track to the next. The song even hits a really dramatic and lush instrumental finish too, which I have to point out because some of the song structures on this thing are really great, like the stellar key change at the end of Put On a Smile, not to mention the chilly and teary-eyed verses on that track and the way they transition into and contrast from the lush and decadent choruses that are like biting into a fat piece of chocolate cake. Bruno and Anderson's heartache really rings through on this one too, especially as Bruno is hitting those high notes. Bruno and Anderson's frustration also carries through on the song Smokin' Out the Window, where they portray themselves as getting the short end of the stick in a relationship, paying for rent, paying for this, paying for that, but now I'm alone. How could she do this to me? Which also transitions into insane lyrics like, look here baby, I hope you found whatever it is you need, but I also hope that your trifling ass is walking barefoot in these streets. Gotta give you back to the city. This is like a 70s version of Future. Look, obviously the lead singles and highlights from this record are great. I have been just as excited to hear this project as everyone else has after Leave the Door Open dropped, Smokin' dropped, Skate dropped, but now that the whole thing is out, this record is a little on the short side at just 31 minutes, 8 tracks and an intro, and now with the full run of tracks here, I can kind of hear why. I think Bruno and Anderson write themselves into a corner pretty quickly. For one, the instrumental palettes on this record are not that varied, and attempts to wiggle out of them don't go over that well, like on the closing track Blast Off, which is an attempt at a kind of psychedelic soul number, but the shots of wild trippy synths and washes of effects come off a little sterile, not really that enveloping or surreal. There are even some instrumental passages that come off a little too similar, like some of the chord changes and vocal melodies on Put On a Smile and Leave the Door Open, specifically when we switch back over to Bruno. In this respect, I get some hits of deja vu off the closing track as well. And finally, there is a degree to which I see Silk Sonic's music almost as an artistic cosplay, which I think in theory is fine as long as those influences you're paying homage to are attributed tastefully, and maybe you sort of build on that a little bit in your own way. But there are some key spots where I think Silk Sonic falls short of that, like on the track 777, which, yeah, is a really rowdy and funky, fun track, but simultaneously, it sounds like a really elaborate casino commercial written by James Brown. And I don't know how, but the song After Last Night, as much as I enjoyed this track, and even Thundercat's contributions to it, somehow Bruno and Anderson here have like reverse engineered an instrumental backing track to Dick in a Box. How did we land here? Which I don't think ruins the track. I think both songs are enjoyable in their own right, but it does kind of read as surface level and as pastiche when your very serious soul project accidentally maps over a parody song, which I think would have been a lot less likely if Bruno and Anderson were trying to push things a little bit harder on the writing end. If that were the case, we would have gotten more material out of this thing too. But still, overall, I enjoyed listening to this thing. I see it as a good record. It is a short, impassioned snapshot of a vibe, of an energy, of a style. Bruno and Anderson are very apparently having a great time writing and recording these tracks, and that comes out in nearly every single song. So while this Silk Sonic record might be a little on the brief side and not exactly original, that is made up for greatly by a lot of fun, a lot of beauty, and a lot of heart. I'm feeling a strong 7 to a light 8 on this thing. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head, it's another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Bruno Mars, Anderson .Paak, forever.